Hey guys, Boogie wanted me to do a little advertisement here and talk about the super awesome t-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve shirt that you can get that features me and my dog Sammy and all kinds of Mountain Dews. And if you don't pick up this shirt before Christmas, you'll never be able to get it. And if you can't fit in these shirts because you're a big fat fatty like me, you can always get the face mask, the phone case, or even a sticker instead. But keep in mind, if you don't get it before Christmas, you'll never get it, because it's gone.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at your live once again through the power of the internet. And I thought today would be a lot of fun to talk to you about which gaming console I'm using the most, which one I prefer, why I prefer it, and maybe help you make a decision as to which gaming console you'd like to pick up. But I want to go ahead and start this by saying the best case scenario is to get both of them eventually. Also a Nintendo Switch, also a half decent laptop so you can play some PC exclusives as well. I think the best way to play any console generation is to own every console if you're so lucky as to be able to afford that. If you can't and you have to make a decision, I hope this helps you make that decision. First off, let's talk a little bit about the graphics because there's really not a big difference here. I have used both of these systems on a nice big 75-inch 4K television with HDR and 60 frames per second. And I'm just going to tell you, they look pretty close to identical. Now, keep in mind, I'm a 46-year-old man who wears glasses, who clearly has bad eyesight. You might be able to tell the difference. I'm just going to tell you, I really can't. And it's about as good as graphics can get at this point. I feel like we're at a point of diminishing returns. The new lighting for this generation is amazing. The graphics are amazing. The frame rates are pretty good. But the most important thing is that both of these consoles pretty much look identical when it comes to gameplay. There's no clear winner here, so there's no real reason to choose one over the other when it comes to graphics. Now, when it comes to the controller, though, there is a clear winner here. You've heard me say in the past that this is the best controller ever made, that it is perfect. But this controller is pretty much the same thing, only with improvements, whether it's the touchpad, the light bars, the haptic feedback, the HD rumble, and all of these other cool things. This is a truly next-generation experience. When I play with my Xbox controller, it still feels the same because it is basically the same. This is a big leap forward. The only problem is, I'm not sure that every developer will take advantage of the things that this controller can do. Obviously, first-party games will do that, and maybe that's enough, but I really wish that both of these consoles had similar controllers so third-party developers were interested in developing for this kind of stuff as well. But I have to say, the games that do use this, use it really well. What really matters with this next generation, and any generation, comes down to the games they can play. And most of these systems will have plenty of third-party games on them, so you have to focus on the exclusives. And right now at launch, there is basically no Xbox Series X exclusives, though there are plenty of exclusives on the PlayStation 5, and it looks like PlayStation 5 is going to beat Xbox to the punch when it comes to exclusives because they have a bunch dropping in the first and second quarter of next year. But keep in mind that Xbox has been buying up gaming studios like Bethesda left and right for the last couple of years. And that means there's going to be a hell of a lot of exclusives for the Xbox Series X and also PC. They'll probably come to PC as well. But it means that they are working on having a hell of an exclusive lineup that you won't be able to play on PlayStation 5. By the end of this generation, Xbox could have the best exclusive lineup. But here early on, PlayStation's the clear winner. But in the meantime, while we're waiting on exclusives to come out, I've got to say that Xbox has a lot of games that you can play from previous generations, including Xbox 360 and original Xbox, that you can all download for one low $15 a month price, and you can stream these games on a PC, on Xbox, on your Android and iPhone devices. I mean, Game Pass is the best deal out there. And I mean, you don't even have to buy an Xbox to play a lot of these games on Game Pass if you have a laptop or if you have a phone. So keep that in mind. But if you do buy an Xbox Series X, you'll get access to Game Pass for $15 a month, and boy, is it a good value. To compete with this, though, if you buy a PlayStation 5, you get access to the PlayStation Plus collection when you subscribe to PlayStation Plus, and it includes a ridiculous number of games that you can play, including all of the exclusives from the previous generation, like God of War, Days Gone. That's all free for you to download and play when you buy a PlayStation 5 and subscribe to PlayStation Plus. You don't even have to subscribe to PlayStation Now to get these games. They're just there for you, ready as soon as you boot up that PlayStation 5. Now, when it comes to the UI that you'll be looking at every day, I have to say the PlayStation 4 UI is really decent, and the PlayStation 5 improves on that formula. It's pretty much the same thing, but with some major changes that do feel a little bit more next gen. When you go to the games store, for example, it's not a separate app, it's just part of the dashboard. And they have all of these little cool things like these blades and stuff that allow you to see achievements and hints about the game and tutorials, and it really does feel next generation. Meanwhile, the Xbox Series X kind of goes for a if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And they've actually unified their UI. It looks the same on a Xbox Series X as it does on an Xbox One X or pretty much any other Xbox. And it looks very similar to what you're going to see in the Xbox app on phones or on PC. They pretty much went for a unified experience. And I have to say, this is the UI that I've used primarily since I got these new consoles, and it's very close to the previous Xbox UI, and I'm very much used to this. This is the one that I prefer to use. Believe it or not, even though it lacks all of the bells and whistles that the PlayStation 5 one has, I just really find myself enjoying the Xbox UI a little bit more. But maybe it's just because I'm used to it. But I'll say the console that I'm using the most is the Xbox Series X, and I will explain that it's not just because that's what I'm used to using. It's not just because my media remotes from the previous generation work well with it, or just because I like the UI. It's because there's a lot of other life convenience things that Xbox is doing right that PlayStation isn't. When it comes to the PlayStation 5, if I shut down the PlayStation 5 and then go boot up my PlayStation 4 in a different room and want to continue playing that same game from that same spot, it's pretty inconvenient, and I find myself wanting to rely on the PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 streaming setup, and that setup just isn't very good yet, though I'm sure it'll get better with time. Xbox has made that absurdly convenient. I shut down my Xbox Series X, I go to bed, I boot up my Xbox One X, and instantly it downloads the save file and boots up the game, and I'm back in that game within just 60 seconds. So Xbox is doing that right, whereas PlayStation isn't. Xbox also went out of the way to make sure that all of your previous accessories are still usable with your Xbox Series X. Your old controllers, the Elite controller you pay $250 for, the media remotes, all of that stuff just natively super easily works with your new Xbox. PlayStation, you got to buy the new stuff. If you want to play a PlayStation 5 game, you can't use a PlayStation 4 controller to do it. Also, when it comes to upgrading your games from the PlayStation 4 version to the PlayStation 5 version, that can be a pain in the butt, and it's up to the developer on how that's going to be handled. Pretty much unilaterally across the board when it comes to the Xbox games I am playing, it just presumes I want the new version and will install the new version and just automatically gives it to you without really thinking about it. And it'll downgrade just as easily. So if I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it doesn't matter which system I buy it for, Series X or One X, it just gives you both of them, and then we'll load the correct one on the correct console. PlayStation needs to work on that as well. But this is all stuff that I think most consumers are not going to care about. I care about this stuff. You may not. The stuff that you will care about, like loading time and graphical fidelity and all that stuff, it's pretty close to identical. You're really not going to make a decision based on the loading time or probably any of the other stuff I've mentioned here. It's just stuff I wish that PlayStation did as well as Xbox. So decision time, if you're not somebody that can afford to get both or you're trying to figure out which one to get first, I think the PlayStation is probably the clear winner. It feels like more next gen. It's going to have more access to more new games and older games that you may not have played. It's a really good value. And if you want to play a lot of those Xbox games that are on Game Pass, if you have a laptop that you can stream to or download those games, if you have a phone that you can stream to, thanks to Project xCloud and Game Pass, you don't even have to own an Xbox. You really don't. You can still play most of those games. You have to own a PlayStation, though. In fact, if I had to choose one gaming console to own for the next 3 months, and then I could get another one, and then I could get another one, this is the order I would go in. I would buy a Nintendo Switch today because it has such a robust library and some exclusive titles still that I'm looking forward to. Then I would buy the PlayStation 5 to get access to all of those PlayStation 4 games that you and I may have missed or that we get to play again. And then I would get an Xbox Series X. But I think it's very important to point out the Xbox Series X is an incredible device. It will work very well in your home. It gives you a lot of perks, and Windows and Microsoft and Xbox are continuing to work on their ecosystem, on their device, on Game Pass. It's just going to get better. Even if you're a PlayStation fan, I think eventually you'll want to own this generation of Xbox as well. As you should. You absolutely should. But let me stress that if you don't own a Nintendo Switch, that might be the one that you'll want to get this holiday season and play those games and get access to those libraries while you wait for stock for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X to come in. It's a great way to avoid paying scalper prices. You can find a Switch at a lot of retailers right now. Right now. That's the one you should get for Christmas, especially if you're already on a PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One X. You really don't need either of these. You just don't.